Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau. For nearly a century, Farm Bureau has been a friend of the farm for all Virginians. Visit our website at vafb.com.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce the wonderful local products we enjoy, brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Here's what's coming up on this week's show. Meet two after-hours agriculturalists who bring a whole new meaning to work-life balance. See how local grains make their way to culinary creations. And learn why this innovative grass blend keeps lawns green year-round.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
Welcome back to Real Virginia, everyone. This week we're in Fluvanna County, where Blake and Sarah Hayslip raise beef cattle and hay. The financial realities of farming can be difficult. Long hours, variable income, lack of benefits. I visited two young farmers who shared their motivation for raising crops and cattle while working full-time off-farm jobs.
For many of us, evenings and weekends mean relaxation and recreation. But for Fluvanna County farmer Blake Hayslip, they're time to do what he loves best.
Most of the time when I get home in the evening, I'm going around checking cows or moving cows, to a new field of grass or working on something. I do a little bit of work at night time, like when it's hay season. If it's still in prime fertilizer season, I may cut hay at night, in the dark, which can be fun.
Despite long hours, though, pulling double duty is all Hayslip knows.
It's a drive that started years ago when I was a kid, that I always wanted to farm, and as soon as I signed myself up for it, I knew kind of what I was getting into, and I was okay with that. That's what I wanted to do. It takes a job to farm, in my case. Either way, I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, not only am I helping take care of farms with my job, my day job, but I can also go home and farm.
Along with raising beef cattle and hay, Hayslip works full-time as a truck driver, spreading fertilizer and applying crop protectants.
Blue Ridge Farmers Co-op is a farmer-owned cooperative located in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we offer agronomy work like what we're doing today, and we sell feed and fencing and farm supplies. Today we are applying some fall fertilizer. Even though it's in January, it's still considered fall fertilizer, just some phosphorus and potash, and that will help the grass in the spring.
Hayslip says that for him and his wife Sarah, having a steady paycheck is what makes his dream possible.
In today's time, with the cost of everything, housing and groceries, whatever, you name it, I know that I would not be able to live off of what I make farming due to my size. If I only farmed full time, at my scale, or even a little bit larger. With farming, you get one check a year. And with working a full-time job, you have steady income with other benefits.
And the Hayslips aren't alone. Almost 60% of Virginia farmers report working off the farm to make ends meet. Elizabeth Cooper says her work as a Virginia Cooperative Extension agriculture agent is the perfect complement to working part-time on her family's Itata farms.
Here we grow corn, soybeans, wheat. We also believe in practicing cover crops in our rotation. We have Black Angus cattle, as you can see behind me. We're a cow-calf operation, so with that, we run 80 to 90 head during the year. Primarily, we're selling the calves off after weaning. We do feed a few out a year, and we sell directly halves and wholes to the community.
As an extension agent, Cooper is focused on connecting farmers with university research to strengthen their operations.
Extension is jack of all trades, master of none is really the best way to describe us. I help the farming community, but I also help our community as a whole in the counties. Making sure that our people have access to information that our land-grant universities are researching and figuring out, but in ways that it's helpful to them. It's not just pushing research and information at them. It's asking them, what do you need? How can we make our community better and more viable and more productive and healthier? And then what do you need from me to make that happen?
She is quick to point out that her work in Extension helps her family's operation as well. When we visited, she demonstrated how to look for potential plant disease in a soybean leaf.
It means everything to be able to continue on what my great-grandfather started here, and even, generations before him that worked in agriculture in the area. This is where my family has lived and died and sweat and put all of their efforts into this land to make sure that, me 4 generations later has the opportunity to be here.
Despite the depth of their passion, though, both Hayslip and Cooper say knowing their limits is vital to sustained success.
I think it's really important to find that balance, especially if you're trying to do both, that you're not going to get to everything all the time. You're never going to be able to do everything. But taking time for yourself, even if that's just taking a night at home, a quiet night at home or something, just to reset and relax and get up the next day and do it all again.
When we get really, really busy and you get down to the end of the day and it's, dark outside and you started in the dark, it's helpful to have people that you can rely on, like my dad. If I'm across the state in Caroline County and it's going to take me 3 hours to get home and it's 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, I'll give him a call and he's always there to help me, check on the cows or make sure that the water trough's working. Or it's a good feeling to know, all right, well today anyway, when I get off work, I can just go home.
For farmers like Hayslip and Cooper, farming isn't just a job. It's a calling that keeps them working long after the sun sets. For Real Virginia, I'm Elijah Griles.
2026 marks the International Year of the Woman Farmer. To celebrate, Real Virginia will spotlight females who are an integral part of Virginia agriculture in each episode.
Caitlin Joyner is the Executive Director of the Virginia Peanut Growers Association and Program Director for the Virginia Peanut Board. Joyner resides in Suffolk, Virginia, and she has an agricultural background that includes working in education and extension for Virginia Tech. She is well known for her efforts to support and promote peanut growers across the Commonwealth. In her role, she oversees industry outreach, marketing, and educational initiatives that benefit Virginia's roughly 200 peanut farms. She helps coordinate research partnerships and represents the state's peanut sector at regional and national events. Joyner also has been active in community-focused programs, such as organizing peanut butter donations to Virginia food banks during National Peanut Month, which highlights the economic and nutritional importance of Virginia-grown peanuts. We're proud to spotlight Caitlin Joyner as part of our International Year of the Woman Farmer series.
This week's episode of The Yield takes us to Rockbridge County, where Virginia's oldest grist mill has teamed up with a farm-to-table restaurant to make culinary delicacies from local grains.
Well, we'll start off as I'm April Anderson, and we're at Wade's Mill, which is an old historic grist mill, circa 1750. And to that initial structure, we still have the stones, the timbers, and some of the medium along the wall here. So you're standing in amongst quite a bit of history right now. I love being a part of the community. I love doing a service to the community. Grinding fresh flour, cornmeal, grits, and various grains. Rockbridge County is one of those gems, I feel. There's just a plethora and a huge, I think, opportunity to be farm to table here. And that's always something that's been a passion of mine, and now I get to play a small part of that role by being here at Wade's Mill. There's this one time this young mother and her husband came in to the mill to seek out and source potentially locally stone ground grains. They were having a child that was experiencing issues with gluten sensitivities, and they had been doing all kinds of stuff to change the diet around. Now, I make sure that this is not a claim that people who have gluten sensitivities, can no problem eat my flour, but the flour that I grind is freshly ground with no preservatives or additives, which a lot of folks are having sensitivities to. They decided, after reading some, documents and journaling, that sometimes locally sourced stone ground grains can be consumed by people who are starting to see that. And so they thought they'd give it a go. They bought a couple small 2-pound bags. And then, you know, I kind of forgot about it. And then it'd probably been a few months and they came back and they were with their kids. And I asked her how it went, and she looked at her daughter and she said, "Tell the nice lady about her flour." And she said, "I can eat cookies again." Sorry, that just, I had to turn away because that really, I mean, I get up every morning and I have to deal with the daily grind, as we like to say. So when I get to see people that I make a difference in their lives, just by simply providing fresh grains and cornmeal and grits, it's very humbling. But it is, it's an honor.
My name's Matthew Adams. I'm the chef owner of Zun Zun Restaurant with my wife, Rebecca. I grew up in Franklin County on a small organic farm. We raised vegetables and chickens, and we sold eggs to local restaurants. We sold vegetables at the farmer's market. Just kind of a small farm on the top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. When I was a young kid, farming life was not something that really interested me. It was a chore, right? Snapping string beans, collecting eggs, doing that kind of thing. It took a few years of being in the industry and working in kitchens and starting to work with farmers that I started to see this appeal and see this connection that made a lot more sense to me at a somewhat older age, when I got away from it being chores and more into things I wanted to work with. I wanted to get the good green beans, I wanted to get the good corn, I wanted to get the good eggs. And you start to realize, well, those all came from the same type of farm that I grew up on. I love the community that we have here in Lexington. It's small town feel. We have a very diverse group of people that live here, and being a small restaurant, we know the majority of the people come in. We are friendly with the people that come in. We know what they like, we know what they don't like. The majority of our customers are regulars, so we get to know them on a personal level. So we don't just see them in the restaurant, we see them at the grocery store and at the post office and at the farmer's market. Getting cornmeal, getting flour, getting polenta, those kind of things from Wade's Mill, it also has a very small town feel. I literally call April on the phone, tell her this is what I'm looking for, and the next day, you know, she's got it over one shoulder, hefting it through the front door. So it's got a very true farm to table feel. It's very easy and it's very nice and it's very personable. And so I really like that connection. And we have that with a lot of farmers. Today I'm going to make chicken meuniere, which is a French preparation. It literally translates to in the style of the miller's wife. It's more traditional with trout, but we wanted to do it with chicken. We got some local chicken that we really liked. We cut that into a cutlet, pound it out, and then we dredge it in an equal mix of Wade's Mill flour, corn flour, which is like cornstarch but without any other additives, just straight corn flour, and cornmeal. It's a really light dredge. We're not doing fried chicken breader. It's very light, pan seared on both sides, salt and pepper, and then once the chicken's cooked through, you add capers and butter, and you want that butter to brown. Stops the cooking process. Baste your chicken with the capers and the butter and the lemon, pull it off, and then we did a little red watercress salad right on top, just to give it a little bright freshness to kind of counteract all that nice, delicious brown butter. So chicken meuniere, really nice lunch or dinner entree. If it's local, then you're not supporting a farm across the country, you're supporting your neighbor, you're supporting the people that live in your community. You know, you are being part of a community.
Looking for a new twist on your classic lasagna recipe? Chef Tammy has the perfect combo of nutrient-dense spinach and protein-packed mushrooms in the heart of the home.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Welcome to Heart of the Home. Today I'm going to show you guys a delicious lasagna recipe. Not your typical lasagna with ricotta cheese and ground beef. We're going to do spinach and mushrooms. So we're going to get started on our saute pans over here. First we're going to start with some tomato sauce, and I really do recommend a San Marzano tomato. So we're going to put the tomatoes into a pan with a little bit of olive oil. And we're going to add some garlic to that, some chopped garlic. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat up just a bit. These are whole tomatoes, but they're going to break down as they cook. And then in our second pan that we have here, we have some olive oil warming up. Now, your recipe is going to say something about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Well, what size pan are you using? If you've got a really big pan, you're certainly going to want more than 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I happen to have a very large pan. We're going to start with some onion on that. Some diced onion, and then we're going to add some sliced mushrooms to that. All right, so we're going to saute the mushrooms and the onions. We're going to let the tomatoes come to a boil. Once the mushrooms and the onions kind of soften up quite a bit, then we're going to move those to a bowl. And we're going to kind of season as we go. We've got some salt and pepper here. So our tomatoes are starting to come to a boil, but as I mentioned, they are whole, so you're going to want to break them down somewhat. I believe the recipe says crushed tomatoes. That's fine too if you want to buy them already crushed. And it's going to start thickening up a little bit, which is great. After it thickens, we're going to add some chopped basil. And believe it or not, I'm going to use the same tool to break down my mushrooms. I could have put them on the cutting board if I'd wanted to and break them down with a knife, but I find go right into the pan with it, use this blade. They don't have to be broken completely down into a fine mince, just somewhat smaller than what they already are. The tomatoes are already starting to thicken, which is very nice. Now, the recipe is also going to tell you to add a little water to your tomatoes to make more sauce. I just don't think it needs it. One is that canned tomatoes typically have a lot of water in them anyway, but it also is going to depend on the dish that you're making the lasagna in. Most lasagnas are done in your larger, almost 9 by 13, maybe even bigger than that. And in that case, if you've got a larger dish and you probably will want more sauce, in other words, so you would want to add that water. I always like to judge things, the oil in the pan, the dishes that we're using to bake in. That will determine the ingredients that go in. Today we're going to be using a smaller square lasagna dish, therefore we really don't need a watery base sauce. I'm going to add some chopped basil that I already have. And now I'm going to turn down my heat a little bit. The mushrooms are done. I'm going to move those to a bowl. And then I'm going to be sauteing the spinach. Now, if you find your skillet somewhat dry before you start sauteing the spinach, you can certainly add a little bit more oil if you would like. I see that it's somewhat moist, so I'm just going to toss in the spinach. And again, the recipe, I think, says to chop the spinach and take the stems off. If you've got a nice baby spinach, there's really no need to do the chopping or the taking the stems off, and mainly because it's going to really cook down. We're going to saute this off in batches. Does not take long. And we're going to be adding this to our mushrooms. We want to add a little salt. Spinach can always take salt. I'm going to add back in the spinach and the mushrooms in that large pan that we're using here. And our vegetables are ready for layering. I'm just going to kind of judge here. Yes, I definitely want a second layer of vegetables. And now we're going to do more sauce over top of those. And now we're going to do some cheese. We've got mozzarella cheese here. It's a heavier amount on the first layer. I think the recipe says maybe 3/4 of a cup or so, but we are dividing this recipe in half. And then we've got some grated Parmesan cheese. And this is your standard brand that you get in the grocery store, but you could certainly use shredded Parmesan if you'd like. Spread that over top. All right, and now we're going to come back with more noodles. We're going to go for more sauce now. Another layer, or our final layer, of our vegetables here. But if you guys have got kale or collards growing in your gardens, that's certainly another green you can use instead. Spread those vegetables out, and let's do some more cheese. A little bit more shredded parm, or grated parm, I should say. All right, we're going to finish off with 2 more no-boil noodles. Going to get the rest of our sauce on top of those. Top it off with the rest of the mozzarella cheese. I'm now going to come back with shredded Parmesan cheese. Now, a nice little trick that I love to do when it comes to anything you bake with foil on top, especially when it comes to cheese, is I love to use a nonstick spray on the foil. Helps keep it from sticking to the cheese when it bakes. So we're just going to kind of roughly spray that. And we're going to kind of loosely cover it to a certain extent. And we're keeping our dish on top of a sheet tray. That will help with spillage in your oven. And we have our oven preheated on 375. We're going to pop this into the oven for about 25 minutes. We're going to pull it out and remove the foil. Remember I said something about spraying the foil so it doesn't stick to the cheese? But now I do want a little bit more brown on the top. Back in the oven for 15 minutes. And this is what it should look like when it comes out of the oven after 15 minutes. In culinary school, I learned that you bake it until GBD, golden brown and delicious. So we're going to cut this and plate it on our plate. This with the vegetables is absolutely delicious. A lot more personality and certainly a lot healthier with the vegetables. Oh, it's gorgeous. Look at those layers. Spinach and mushrooms and that delicious tomato sauce. And there you have it, spinach and mushroom lasagna. I'm Chef Tammy with The Green Kitchen. Join us next time on Heart of the Home.
Ever looked at your lawn and wished your grass wasn't brown all winter long? Mike Voyak takes us to Virginia Beach to see how Virginia Tech researchers are keeping the grass green year-round.
It is the holy grail for every groundskeeper, landscaper, and homeowner. Lush green grass all year long. But is it possible? Tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass thrive in the cooler temperatures, but can burn out during the hot Virginia summers. And Bermuda grass loves the heat, but will brown during the winter. So what is the answer? Enter the ongoing research being conducted at the Virginia Tech Hampton Roads Agricultural Research and Extension Center. Research manager Adam Nichols is putting fresh eyes on an old theory of combining Kentucky bluegrass and Bermuda grass to create Blue Muda.
Blue Muda is actually a combination of two turfgrass species. The first being Kentucky bluegrass, which is a cool season grass, which means it's going to grow very well in the fall and the spring, be green through the wintertime. And then Bermuda grass, which is a warm season turf grass that is going to thrive during the hot temperatures of the summertime. The combination of the two allows for both grasses to kind of have their selective time periods in which they are green. So essentially you have in your transition zone a green grass almost all year round.
The superpower of the Blue Muda blend is its ability to withstand a variety of seasons.
Year-round, a green-looking lawn, whereas if you have just the bluegrass, or in the summertime, it's going to kind of check itself out. You'll have a lot of weeds in that cover situation, or if you have Bermuda grass in the wintertime, once we get our first frost, it kind of checks itself out, goes that dull gray color. Combining the two of them, and it transitions very, very nicely.
Another advantage with Blue Muda is once it's been established, it will grow on its own year after year, as opposed to other grass that requires heavy yearly seeding.
The bluegrass, it has a natural summer dormancy where it it checks itself out when it gets hot, it gets dry, but then comes back when the weather is more conducive to it, and then it spreads out. In the areas that it were kind of weak, it'll spread into, whereas ryegrass doesn't have that spread in nature either. So it's one of those things, if you have the patience up front, you're going to be paid in dividends at the end because you won't have to do all the extra work year after year.
Blue Muda is a great option for athletic playing surfaces as well. Drew Norris, head groundskeeper at City Stadium in Richmond, has utilized this process before.
Here at City Stadium, we're overseeded with perennial ryegrass. A lot of sports fields in the transition zone area of the country utilize that. When I worked out in Louisville, Kentucky, we had Blue Muda on our baseball field. Positive there is that you're green year-round without the annual overseeding process. And it's good for really a lot of baseball fields, soccer fields, and really parks and rec facilities.
Along with staying green year-round, Blue Muda is stronger and more durable, creating safer playing conditions.
definitely holds up a little bit better. It's going to be a little thatchier though, so there's some more maintenance practices need to be done with that sort of thing, some fungicide applications and things of that nature as well. The transition period is going to be in that May to June time frame, so whereas when you have ryegrass and you spray that out every year, which is a costly function, it does transition a little bit easier than a ryegrass field. So it holds up better from a footing perspective for most athletics as well.
With Bermuda grass, when it does go dormant, you know, in certain areas in the transition zone, it can go dormant at the beginning of October, you know, and so at that time, a lot of athletic fields are being heavily trafficked with like football games and things of that nature. The Bermuda is not actively growing, so you get these fields that if they're not overseeded, they're going to end up being a hazard to those playing on it. They'll have a lot of mud, divots, things like that. Well, adding the bluegrass into it, like I said, they have a rhizome in it, kind of really strengthens that soil and that field, gives the players better traction on it, gives it more stability to actually play on those fields.
The one drawback to this process is the upfront wait time. Blue Muda will take much longer to initially grow than a normal rye or fescue grass. However, your patience will be rewarded down the line.
You overseed Bermuda in about 7 to 10 days, you're going to see that grass popping through, and it's going to be green almost right away. You're going to have that green grass you're maintaining very quickly. Whereas bluegrass takes 14 to 21 days to germinate on its own, and then for it to establish, that can take 3 to 4 months. And a lot of people don't have the patience for that, especially athletic fields where they need a turf stand very, very quickly.
While Blue Muda isn't the standard for all Virginia grass just yet, with further research, it could become the answer to having a perennial green lawn.
There's a ton of research happening at a lot of the universities. I think we've actually talked about doing it here. Just the upfront costs being a little bit higher have been a little bit less permissive than what we would have liked. But also we have a longer season, so there's a harder transition for that sort of thing. I think it will be the standard within the next probably 10, 15 years, as long as the research backs it and it's sustainable for the fields themselves.
Is Blue Muda a potential answer? Yes, it is. Is it the answer right now? That we are still working on. We're going to continue to do research to try and get that time frame from seeding to establishment down so it can be more viable for people.
Green grass all year isn't a certainty yet, but with the work being done at the Hampton Roads AREC, the perfect lawn and a picturesque playing field could soon be in your backyard.
We're so glad you could join us to celebrate all the bounty Virginia has to offer. From the kitchen to your home and garden to our beautiful wide open spaces, we're proud to say that this is real Virginia. For everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a great week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia.